Did you see the video guy the road rage incident? No. So what happened was the video started right then you see
I'm Audrey. Sorry. Boss? Yeah. You took water, your board was low, right? How's that going?
We have one of those really out there working.
Yeah. Okay.
So
That could be making headway, and by getting it back to us
what I really want is see if ASA will sign on to railroad is something the other day. Permit 5:30 on Friday night. And have stuff stage there, and I picked up
I saw that post on Facebook for that post all the time. They didn't even go for a permit or do anything. They're hiding in the birds too.
they had to put in 5 hours because they don't want to survive. So we're urgent. We're ready for that.
hot date tonight, Bob?
No, but people just said our kids are waiting.
I've got something going on right now.
Yeah, and having them step up to provide advantage.
Yeah. That's what I was explaining. You want the person. There's nothing you can do on the way back to feed. For that particular
Oh, I'm so glad. It's so awesome.
all summer on our strategy. Our strategy was
That's where they want.
yeah, of course.
So, I work in
You know, I think,
Yeah.
Nobody wants to do it because then it means that there's admitting that there was an issue or that there could potentially be an issue. They have to install safety for there to be a safe crossing, which means how are they going to address that? Does that mean that they actually have to put in something for the train in advance that's going to slow it down or something?
Online. I want to start off with what we're going to run through tonight. Real quick, we'll introduce the board members as well as staff members. We're going to talk about the importance of the ASA and the partnerships that we currently have. I'm going to run through a brief history of the ASA, where we're at today, what's going on with the organization, and then we'll have an open Q&A forum where we'll answer as many questions as we possibly can. There may be some questions we won't be able to answer tonight, but we'll do our best to answer those for you. And for those of you watching live online, feel free, we're monitoring our stream, and feel free to post a question there and we'll address it to the best of our ability. So starting off again, my name is Brian Henry. I'm the board president for this year. I took over from Bob Mason, our long-term president, who decided to step down from that role at the end of last year. So I've been the board president since January, and it's been an incredible learning experience. I've been a Dooner since I was 3 years old. The very first trip I ever made was in 1974 to Dumont Dunes, when my mother actually allowed my father to buy a motorhome, which is still an amazing thing to me to the day, because her idea of roughing it as a hotel with no room service. But we bought the motorhome, we went out to Dumont Dunes, and I've been hooked ever since. I've been going to the dunes. To my left, I want to go ahead and start with Rick Rothwell, our newly elected vice president of the board, and let him introduce himself.
Oh, my name is Rick Rothwell. I was nominated and selected as vice president about 2 hours ago. So anyway, I've been a Dooner. I think I had my first dune buggy about 1967.
So everybody can hear you online? Yep.
Excuse me. My name is Rick Rothwell, vice president. I've been doing since I was probably 14, 15 years old, which was back in 1966, 67 vintage. Been a member of ASA for quite a while now, and been with Bob Mason since the inception of ASA. So very concerned with the dunes, making sure that ability to recreate stays with us forever. There's nothing like the dunes. If you've never been there, you need to go. If you have been there, you know what I'm talking about. We have lots of issues facing the ASA and people that recreate in the dunes. It's a never-ending battle. It never stops. You know, the work that we have to do behind the scenes is incredible. And if you don't believe that, become part of the ASA. Come to the meetings, join the ASA, come to the board meetings. We were here today from 8 o'clock till 5, talking about all kinds of political issues, legislative issues, how to keep the organization running. It's just a lot of work behind the scenes. So we really appreciate everybody's help, donations, volunteers, anything you can do to help us. So I'm going to turn it to Harry.
I'm Kerry Griggs. I am a board member and the legal liaison and legal affairs coordinator. I've been off-roading since I was very, very young, mostly three-wheelers with no suspension and big balloon tires that would buck you off at a moment's notice. It wasn't until I moved to Arizona that I discovered the dunes. That was post-1995, when all it took was one trip. And I kind of thought, where's this been my whole life? And I quickly got involved in ASA when they approached me, and it's been a really good thing. As Rick said, there's lots of legal issues. I understand the need for the donations because it can get a little bit expensive pursuing these fights and working for balanced recreation and public land. So we appreciate everybody's efforts and kind of a front row seat as to the good that your money does.
My name is Floyd Meisner. I manage the Sansport Super Show event for the ASA. Been on the board on and off since 2005. Started dooning in 1998 when I met my wonderful wife, and she introduced me to the sand, and I'm still hooked. I have enjoyed the opportunity to reopen 40,000 acres out there, an area that I have not had a chance to do it in until just now because it was closed before I got a chance to get there. I'm going to keep working on this fight. There's another 9,000 acres I'd like to get back. And it's the support of the duty community that's going to help us get there, along with a lot of hard work from the folks here in this room and out there in the seats.
Well, hi there. My name is Jim Brangham. I think I just realized that I'm now the oldest or longest serving member of the board of directors. But I started my off-road experience at I think about 3 years old by riding my tricycle through my grandmother's Pansy flower bed. But I discovered the dunes in Oregon in 1964 and just fell in love with the recreation and have duned all over the West. I live in Sacramento, California. But my involvement through the California Off-Highway Vehicle Commission got me involved with the beginnings of the ASA in 1999 and 2000. I served on board in 2003 and still happy to be here and appreciate all the service from everybody that's here and all of those in the past, and look forward to seeing you at the dunes or at the Sansport Super Show.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm Bob Ham. In the late 1960s, I bought a brand new Bronco that I wish I still had because I couldn't afford it now. And very quickly, I started finding out that there's a lot of places to go, but I didn't know all of them, so I joined with a bunch of local folks that just started a dune buggy and four-wheel drive group. And then sometime in probably 68 or so, I wrote a letter to the newspaper about what was going on at Pismo and why they shouldn't close it, because that's when the closing rumors started, or the efforts. And another fella who was thinking about forming an organization got in touch with me, and together we decided we should go ahead and do it. And so we were co-founders of Corva in 1969, got incorporated in 1970, and that organization still exists. And then eventually I moved up to Sacramento in 1974 during the last year of the Reagan administration. I was asked to help them because I had been working in the energy industry, and I took over something called the fuel allocation program because we were in the middle of an embargo. And after that, I migrated on to get a job in the state legislature after we got a District 37 motorcyclist elected to the state legislature for the first time, an off-roader who kind of identified himself first as an off-roader and other things later, got elected. And I met a lot of the legislators. They hired me, and I was hooked on that process. So I worked in the legislature, and then later around the legislature, I became a lobbyist. And eventually, yeah, don't tell my mother I'm a lobbyist. You know, I had a bumper sticker. Never mind. Anyhow, I did that for almost 20 years. I lobbied, and my biggest client was all of the off-road groups, as well as the Motorcycle Industry Council and Specialty Vehicle Industry of America, which was the ATV Association, the manufacturers. And I continued to do that for quite a while until I decided to semi-retire, and actually went back and worked for the legislature for one more year when a friend of mine became speaker, the same speaker that appointed Mr. Bramham to the OHV Commission. So I promised to work for them for a year. Then I quasi-retired, I thought, went to work for a non-government organization in the Imperial Valley so I could get closer to my home in San Felipe. And the next thing, I was hired by the County of Imperial to do their legislation. So I finally I felt too old to do that. They would have kept me, but I didn't want to stay there anymore. So I'm now doing it all on a volunteer basis, and I'm here as a member of one of the newer members of the ASA board. And I truly enjoy getting involved and staying involved in this issue, and in particularly keeping the sand dunes open.
One thing about Bob before, since he's a bit modest about it, he's been instrumental in dealing with all the legislative issues that have been coming before us recently, so he's been one of the busiest board members.
Well, hello, my name is Scott Schaffstall. I'm actually the newest board member here. Surprise, surprise. Been dooning for 22 years, since I was 8. First ride was an ATC 185S, which I still have to this day. Everyone has to ride it if they want to learn to go to the dunes. Worked for the Motorcycle Industry Council and the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, doing communications for them, and then went over to handle PR for Kawasaki, and also co-founded Wash 15 Off-Road with my father, who we make the safety flags out there for the dunes. So been doing it a long time and go multiple times every year, and just very happy to be here.
Hello everyone, my name is Nicole Gillis, and I am your Executive Director for the American Sand Association. I've been with the organization now for about 7 years, and I come to dooning through my husband and his family. His dad was Dirty Bob and owned Dirty Bob's Buggy Boutique out in the dunes forever and a day. And so he literally grew up in Glamis, and that was his playground. And we live in Brawley, so we're pretty close to the dunes, and we get to go out there probably not as often as we would like. But it's just a joy to be part of an organization that I believe so fully about. Our family has been recreating there, obviously, for several generations, and we want to make sure that it's around for, in perpetuity for more generations of people to enjoy. And so to know that I'm contributing to that fact, it's an honor to work for this organization. Not to mention the fact, like we've already mentioned earlier, that we had our board planning session today, and to think of all the time that is spent working on keeping the dunes open, I would just like to take a moment to thank the Board of Directors for volunteering their time and to make sure that we have a place to recreate in the future. And there's a lot going on, and Brian will cover some of that. And I just wanted to thank them again very much.
Thank you, Nicole. In addition, we currently have one vacant board seat. And one board member was unable to join us. That's Gary Jordan. He's one of our Arizona-based board members. And also not able to join us due to a previous engagement is our board secretary. She's also the one who runs our store. So if you buy something from us online, she's shipping it to you. And that's Nikki Massey-Daniels. Okay, so the reason why the ASA is here, and it's changed over the last 16 years, but what we accomplish helps us with public land access issues everywhere. And so we take a very great responsibility and take it on with a great deal of sincerity to make sure that we're trying to do what's best to maintain OHV access everywhere. Our primary focus is the Imperial Sand Dunes because that's been ground zero for the past 16 years, now 17 years. And but we feel that we've been able to set a few precedents there that help everybody. And so in addition, we do work with a lot of partners to try to make sure that what we do with the contributions that we so generously receive, that we make sure that we are maximizing the value for the dollar that we receive. And in that regard, we have Ecologic, which Carrie is part of. It's our legal coalition that helps us with all the legal aspects that we have to deal with. We also work with the American Motorcycle Association, San Diego Off-Road Coalition, Corva, the Off-Road Business Association, Cal 4-Wheel, Friends of Oceano, and Friends of Dumont Dunes. So we are very, very active. And again, as Rick mentioned earlier, a lot of it is behind the scenes. There's not a lot of razzle-dazzle, very public-facing things going on now, but things are just as important as when we were battling the main closures out at the Imperial Sand Dunes, which started in 1998. Just a quick history. Pearson's milk vetch is one of the plants that we've had to deal with and have had to learn a lot about because back in 1998 there was very little to no science about this plant. And because of the way the Endangered Species Act is written, it was extremely easy to get it listed as threatened, which it still remains listed as today. And this is a picture of the plant here on the slide. In addition, in 2000, BLM was sued. As part of the Endangered Species Act, they are required to do certain things as far as studies of the plant, in this particular case, once it's listed. And because their budget was hamstrung due to other litigation that they were already dealing with, they were sued. They lost. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. So it was a very cut and dried case. And we lost 49,000 acres of dune access that we had historically had out of the dunes. This was also the same year that the ASA was formed. We actually celebrated our 17th birthday this month. We were formed in June of 2000. In 2001, ASA approached Dr. Art Phillips. He's a botanist, and he told us, you may not like the answer I give you because I'm going to give you the truth. And we said, that's what we want. We want to know what's going on with the plant. We want to know if we are affecting it. We, of course, felt that we weren't affecting it at the time, but we didn't know. There was no science on this plant. Dr. Phillips conducted a study over the next 7 years. This is what a lot of the donations from the early days went towards. And we were very thankful for the generous donations that happened back then to make this happen. Because now, because of the ASA and the donations that we received, we were able to develop the science on this plant to a point where it's used as a model for other desert plants that are being studied. In 2004 and 2005, as the study continued on, this was the first year of the full dune study of PMV. And this is where we really got a good idea of what the seed bank is, which is the most important thing with dealing with the plants. Basically, how many seeds are out there, so how many potential plants are there. In 2005, we have the Recreation Area Management Plan. In addition to dealing with Pearson's milk vetch, this was the guidebook or the Bible for the BLM for how they're going to manage the entire dune complex, not just the camping area, not just dealing with PMV, but how they deal with everything. And unfortunately, in 2006, that particular ramp was set aside by the federal court because they felt it didn't fulfill the requirements that were necessary to deal with Pearson's milk vetch. In 2007, one of the things ASA did, where we used some of the donations we received, was that we sued on behalf, essentially, of the BLM to settle the critical habitat issue. And when it comes to endangered and threatened species, critical habitat is the area that is of most concern to Fish and Wildlife Service, because this is the area that is required for that species to recover. Prior to 2007, nobody could determine what the critical habitat was. And as part of the lawsuit that we initiated, we were able to get that settled, which allowed in 2008 BLM to begin revising the 2005 management plan and to move forward, so that by 2013 that plan was published, which got us to where we are today in 2014 with a recovery of 40,000 acres for recreation opportunities. We're not done yet, so I'll get to that in just a minute. Finally, in 2016, all the appeals process was exhausted. And basically what it boils down to is the BLM, being litigation weary, was very concerned about how much acreage they closed, which is why 9,000 acres is what we have today. And what it boils down to is, now that the lawsuit is fully settled, we'll be able to take a look at underneath the Recreation Area Management Plan, because BLM has discretion as far as the... it's okay. All right. What we'll be able to do is take a look at the Recreation Area Management Plan, because BLM and Fish and Wildlife have discretion over what's closed and what isn't. So that brings us to where the ASA is today. So over the past 16, 17 years, we've been focused on PMV and the Recreation Area Management Plan, and now we need to shift gears, because that battle is over, but the war is far from done. We still have a long ways to go in terms of maintaining access to the Imperial Sand Dunes. So as the ASA, we have goals and priorities that we've set. We have fundraising efforts and volunteer recruitment to deal with, because these are the two lifebloods of any volunteer organization. In addition, we're now starting to leverage social media to try to expand our reach and increase the ASA awareness. The goals and priorities that we've dealt with, or that we've set for the board in the coming years, big one. And we hear this loud and clear all the time whenever we ask our members what they want. And everybody wants sand highway access to the west side of the dunes and the south end, especially in the Patton Valley. And it is something we are absolutely focused on. In addition, we have the California Green Sticker program is up for renewal this year. Imperial Sand Dunes receives most of its funding that we see on the ground from Green Sticker, far more money than is collected from the annual pass program. So one of the things is, as the program was built in 1971, it's become model legislation for states around the country to use for their OHV programs. But the way the program was originally built, it was designed to sunset, or basically go away after a certain number of years. Since 1971, it's been renewed every time it's come up, but we think that after 45 plus years that it's time for it to go away in terms of the sunset and become a permanent program. And that's one of the things Bob has been so diligently working on this past year. In addition, because we do need additional funds, we're looking at increasing our business sponsors and business sponsorship program, as well as expanding and improving upon our supporting membership program. We very much appreciate the contributions that we get. It allows us to do everything that we do to try to keep the dunes open and maintain access for OHV recreation. We'll also are working on engaging with our federal legislators. Dianne Feinstein introduced the bill to designate national OHV recreation areas. And at the time she introduced the bill, Imperial Sand Dunes was still under the lawsuit for the management plan. Now that management plan lawsuit is over, we hope to have that included as part of that legislation. And of course, recovering the 9,000 acres still closes PME critical habitat. We definitely want that area back. We feel that it's appropriate for OHV recreation, and that the plan itself, in my personal opinion, never should have been less as threatened.
Brian?
Yes?
Your slides aren't up.
Oh, they'll catch up. Or they should. Switch back. Make sure that goes. Also, one of the things we have to do is, under the Recreation Area Management Plan, BLM could be sued by the people that have sued them before if they don't do what they promised in the plan. And that could put us in jeopardy as well, too, of losing OHV recreation. In addition, BLM has a great deal of discretion under the management plan for how they manage OHV opportunities. So we are at the table with BLM to ensure that they don't do anything that adversely affects our access to the dunes. And that's part of what our contributions that we receive go towards. Our fundraising efforts, one of the things that happens to every volunteer organization, our revenues have declined year over year. There's been a lot of fatigue. We've been doing this for a lot of years. People lose interest, move on. Raffle sales go down. People already have their toys, etc. A lot of different reasons and a lot of different factors play into this. One of the steps that we did take to help with this is we did increase the cost associated with our bronze or our lowest level of business sponsorship. For 16 years, it had been $50. We increased it to $125 for a year, which better aligns with our other levels. We have a silver, a gold, and a platinum, and each one represents a doubling. So from 125 to 250 for silver, 250 to 500 for gold, and 500 to 1,000 for platinum. In addition, Polaris has stepped up as a corporate sponsor, which is a beyond platinum level, and we're very thankful for their support and their contribution. So in addition to the vehicles that they've given us over the years to raffle, they're also supporting us financially, and it's a great benefit. One of the things that this particular sponsorship will help us with is alleviating some of the tax issues involved with our raffle. So they're helping us out with that. The other thing that's come up, and we've been the beneficiary of, is estate planning. As Duners age out and they want to continue on their legacy at the Dunes, we absolutely welcome people to recognize the ASA as a beneficiary in their estate. And it's something that we'd like to request that you take a look at, and it's something that allows your support to continue in perpetuity. So we do appreciate the support in that regard. Recently, we did circulate a fundraising survey. We want to make sure we're spending your money in a very wise manner, and we've got good response on that, and it feels like we're right in the sweet spot where we understand what you want us to do, how you want us to spend your money, and what you want us to accomplish, and that we want to make sure we take a pulse and listen to everybody as far as what we're doing, and we thank you for your responses on that. So those are our fundraising efforts, and the other part of any volunteer organization, of course, is recruiting volunteers, which is something that's also, we've had a lot of attrition lately, a lot of burnout, people who have moved on to other things. One of our biggest needs right now, there's a lot of events we didn't get a chance to get to this year because we are lacking leadership in event coordination as well as staffing at events. So you'll be seeing stuff from us coming out that will be asking for particular skill sets to assist us with showcasing and delivering the ASA message at more events. The other thing is, we heard loud and clear, people want more merchandise from the ASA, so we need help developing that merchandise, getting it developed, produced, and available for sale on our store. In addition, a big one that we're dealing with, and part of the reason Scott has joined us, is we're looking at, we need social media brand ambassadors. With the increasing power of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we need more help in making sure that the ASA message is out there, that everybody knows what the ASA stands for, what we do, and that we're reaching out to the people that can best help us and best support us. So with that, I want to mention what our social media efforts are coming up. One is expanding the ASA brand. Again, we want to make sure we want to get it out there and make sure that everybody understands the ASA is about keeping public lands open for OHV recreation, and that we use donations wisely to attain that goal. We will be conducting fundraising campaigns via social media, and we're also working on improving it as our information resource. Early on, we had our bulletin board system on our website. It's still active, it's still available, we can still use it, we just don't get the traffic there anymore. So most of our information has gone to Facebook, and that's how we communicate with our members currently. So we'll be seeing more of that from us. In addition, we're working on a more regular e-newsletter and increased communication so everybody knows what's going on. Because, again, it's not the stuff that's in the forefront. We're not there at meetings talking to BLM saying, hey, we need these dunes back. We want to make sure that everybody understands what we're doing behind the background and work on improving that communication with everybody. So that's what I have as far as prepared remarks for tonight. That's where the ASA is. I'd like to open it up to Q&A at this point. Again, for those of you watching online, feel free to post a question as a comment. We'll address that, and we'll go from there. Yes, you get a microphone in.
Thank you.
Let me make sure it is. Yep, it is.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yep.
The Pearson's Milk Vet is a big problem out there. By the way, I'm Ed Stoven, I'm president of the San Diego Off-Road Coalition, and I'm vice chair of the Imperial Sand Dunes DAC subgroup, the advisory group to the BLM. The Pearson's Bowfetch is a problem. I understand we've done 2 significant plant counts over the years. We've had 2 wet years before this past winter. And I remember reading that the way the plants were counted, that Fish and Wildlife didn't accept that style of counting, which I thought was extremely frustrating. Last winter we had a real wet winter. How did plant counting go? I haven't heard anything.
We're still waiting on the report from Fish and Wildlife. It's actually due out right now. And Nicole has been in contact with them to find out when that report is coming out.
So the only counting that took place was by Fish and Wildlife?
Correct. We concluded the study with Dr. Phillips, and he's in semi-retirement. However, we have reached out to him to help us with the west side access to the South Dunes so that we have the science in order as well when we approach BLM and Fish and Wildlife Service for some administrative relief in those areas.
I have a question. Are you specifically asking about this past year and whether or not it triggered the more in-depth study? Because
that's a close. I didn't.
Okay,
because that's a good thing to bring up.
Because from the last conversation that I believe that we had with the BLM, they said that it did not.
I kind of remember that from the last
But
meeting we had.
as you know, we haven't been able to meet with them recently because they're reorganizing some of the subgroup stuff. But that is definitely something that is in our purview and that we will talk to them about because, yes, we had a huge amount of rain out there, but it all depends on whether or not it's within the certain time frame that it needs so the plant can germinate. So, and that then would kick off a more in-depth study, and it's my knowledge that the more in-depth study criteria was not met. So that they just did the regular monitoring that they normally do. But the BLM would have to answer that more in detail.
Thanks for jogging my memory. I kind of remember that now.
I don't know if that microphone is working now.
I just have it turned down more in the room.
Okay.
Can I hit a different topic?
Sure.
The Bureau of Land Management used to have a fine website for the dunes. The El Centro office had its own website. They had a lot of information there. In recent months, that website went away, and there's just a more general national BLM website. Are you talking to the BLM, the higher-ups, about bringing that website back? If not,
That was also a concern of mine because I actually referenced that website quite a bit. And it's from my conversations with the El Centro field office, what they've done is they've put the majority of that information on their Facebook page. And that's something that they're able to regularly update as opposed to the website that apparently had to go through a lot of red tape and things to get things posted on that. Now, whether or not all of the information is located on their Facebook page, I'm not sure. But it is something that we're looking to try to recreate to have, we always have had the rules and regulations and any pertinent information for duners and new duners and things on our website as well. But as far as everything that the BLM had on their website, even like permitting information, if you want to have like a special recreation permit, all of that used to be on the website, and people now are either directed to go to the Facebook page. If you're not a Facebook member, then I guess, oh well, unfortunately. If not, then you would contact the El Centro field office, and they would have to talk to you and send you direct information directly.
Yeah. Or they could just go to the ASA website.
That's right.
Get a lot of information.
That sounds better.
I like that.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. We have any questions from online, Nicole?
Not yet.
Okay. Rusty.
This is a question that I would address to Carrie, but anyone could answer it perhaps. Michael Shevlin is an attorney in San Diego. He has given us some ideas and one that he came up with and sent to you guys was that there's a time limit on, I guess, the PMV, or on the time that something would be put on that list. Is there any validity or anything that could or should be done in response to that?
Are you saying a time limit for purposes of a potential delisting petition?
I believe so.
Yeah, the delisting petition can happen really at any time, according to my understanding. But in discussions with Dave Hubbard, who's our primary legal consultant on these issues, we've gone through, and all indications is our next best approach is not to try to push on a delisting angle. Our next best approach is really an administrative approach, because the way the laws and the administrative regulations are drafted, the BLM itself has a fair amount of discretion in how to actually manage the closures after the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has identified the critical habitat boundaries. And so as we look at it, we think, and frankly, this also leverages our good relationship with the BLM. We've spent some time out at the field office talking to them. We believe that with those relationships and consulting with Art Phillips, we can actually get more accomplished administratively than through litigation. And anytime you're talking to BLM folks and you talk about something that increases the chances of litigation, they kind of shrug their shoulders and kind of give you that not again sort of a response. Any kind of delisting efforts would almost certainly lead to additional litigation. So we're actually pretty confident and pretty optimistic that using their discretion and in partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and through our consultations with Art Phillips, the lead botanist in the milk vetch in the world, as far as we're concerned, and I think that's indisputable, that administratively pushing these angles is going to get us where we need to go.
Did anyone respond to this email?
To Art Phillips' email?
No, Michael Shetland.
We've had him reaching out to us at times in the past, and we absolutely respond.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So I think we've got a pretty good plan in place, and hopefully it doesn't land anybody in litigation. Administration's usually a little cheaper.
In addition, as we all well know, government moves at a glacial pace, extremely slow. But one of the things as part of the management plan that came out was that the plan provided for essentially a 5-year window for the recovery of PMV. We're basically 3 years into that 5-year plan now. So in another couple of years, that may be another administrative relief to take a look at in terms of, okay, we've given this plan 5 years. It's shown a stable population or whatever the population does over the next couple more years. And that may also work into our favor as well too. Honestly, part of it is we don't know because everything can change at any given time. But we feel pretty confident that, yeah, the plant is robust and healthy and the population is not in danger from our activity out there.
And just a little bit of a follow-up, there are some time limits in connection with recovery plans and things that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife is mandated to do under the current administrative system. And actually, Nicole does a great job routinely following up with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to make sure that they meet those deadlines. Now, there are ways that they can seek and get some extensions through an administrative procedure, but Nicole's doing a pretty good job following up with them in terms of the timing on the recovery plan.
If no one else, I've got a second question. Did anyone reach out to organizations like ORW, 4x4 Parts, and the bigger companies that support our industry or our efforts to come to this meeting and maybe see what they had to say and what they could do to help?
Not yet, and that's part of where we're falling short a little bit on volunteers is we absolutely need somebody to take up our business sponsorship leadership. We had some fantastic volunteers in the past who've done really well, and for personal or other reasons they've since gone on their own way. So absolutely, I'm looking for somebody who can help us with that because we do want to make sure that things like Coin Power Sports and 4x4 and ORW are at the table with us because we want to know what their concerns are and make sure that they have business to conduct. So
they were invited to this.
Yes.
That was my question.
Yeah, if they're supporting us, then they're already automatically on our list and they receive notification of this meeting. Plus, we've been posting it like crazy on all our social media sites as well as Twitter and but yes, everyone, especially people in this area and even up into North County and Imperial Valley, all receive notification about this meeting.
And I actually personally reached out to a friend of mine at ORW who, my friend is in ORW corporate, and he was very interested, but it's a Saturday and family plans came first, so it kind of lost out, but he was interested, and they do watch what happens here.
And again, the advantage of Facebook Live now is that this video will be there available for anybody to go back and take a look at, and we can get follow-up questions that we'll be more than happy to answer. Speaking of which, have we gotten any questions from our audience?
No, really, we haven't. There's a lot of people watching, but they're just listening.
That's fine too. Hopefully we've shared some information that they find useful and helpful.
I just turned it off.
It's on.
Hello everyone, my name is Lance Percotta. I'm the manager of the Boardmanville store in Glamis. I got involved in the fight to try to regain the access to the eastern routes of travel. And through my research, there was 4 crossings that the public used, and they're on the public maps. And I've been going around with the Union Pacific Railroad, Lupe Valdez, who is the area manager for public relations. She doesn't do anything. I've been basically calling her out on a lot of different things. One of them was closure of Highway 78 on an urgent emergency closure, that they had stuff placed there a week in advance. And so been digging harder and harder, and I've been asking for the proof, because Union Pacific Railroad says that those crossings were private crossings. They're private crossings. And they can't come up with any proof. I don't think that they have any proof that those were private crossings. I have these crossings on public maps. It's about time to file a complaint with the Public Utilities Commission. And I would like to have American Sand Association and any of the other organizations that are out there help sign on to the PUC complaint. We have over 5,000 signatures on the online petition that we started, and another 850 from people signing in at the store to regain the access. And what our fear is that if people don't use the area where we're at, it will eventually get closed because of lack of use. A lot of the trails that were used before when they did the designated route to travel really didn't get on the designated route to travel. I just talked to Mark McMillan a month or so ago, and the route that they used to leave McMillan Camp to go to the dunes was never designated, and they got a warning ticket and told that they don't have the access that they used to have, and that was a route that they used. It's a way for the BLM to basically shrink the area that they have to patrol, which is not our fault. It's not it's our area, and you can physically camp on the east side of the train tracks up to a mile out there, and it's open camping out there as long as you're within the route areas and all that kind of stuff. It really opens up the desert, and if you camp over there, you can't use bathrooms on the east side unless you load your camp up, get a street legal vehicle, and drive around. I have taken video of people driving across Highway 78 with their OHVs, jumping the tracks and their OHVs, walking across the tracks to get to the restrooms. The railroad knows it's a problem. I was out there June 5th, and I was just coming back from Home Depot. The train was crossing. I stopped. I looked over to my right, and Lupe Valdez was there with Wes Lujan, which is her boss, and David Pickett, the attorney, who's been on this since 2009. Those 3 were out there for the only reason to try to figure out what they can do to try to stop the stuff that's going on, the political push that they're getting from Senator Anderson has been incredibly helpful. Wrote letters to the PUC, wrote letters to Caltrans. I've got letters from Assemblyman Garcia, Senator Hueso. Congressman Vargas I can't seem to get to him and talk to him physically. I've talked to his chief of staff. They keep putting me back to Tomas Olivier, who is Senator or Congressman Congressman Vargas's Imperial rep. There's a lot of conflict with what they have going on, with what's happening out there, and I think it's time that we file a complaint with PUC. The PUC can mandate and tell the railroad what to do, and Caltrans was willing to take responsibility of crossing at 78. I talked to Corey Binns, talked to Dora Wheeler and Beth, and I can't think of Beth's last name right now, sorry about that, Beth. They want to fix it. I've showed them pictures of people driving across. They want to fix the problem, and they're willing to take responsibility of a crossing at the 78. I talked to Jeannie from the Glamis store. They're willing to donate the little portion of property to allow a crossing to be put next to Highway 78 so people can have the access. They realize it's a problem. The Glamis Beach store owns all four corners of Highway 78 and the train tracks. They don't want to see anything that's happened like happened in 2007. I have talked at length with the family of the Gonzalez and the Bestwicks. They lost their 3 children there at Highway 78 in 2007. They are 100% on board. They actually asked in 2007 and again in 2009 for something to be done so it doesn't happen again, so people don't drive onto the highway. It's frustrating. You know, they say, well, Lance, you just want to get people to your bar. And I said, I'll close the bar. It means enough to us to get the access so people do not get hurt crossing the tracks, to gain the trails that go all the way to the Colorado River. I mean, there's gold mines out there. There's so much stuff to see, especially with the new side-by-sides. It's, you know, it helps spread people out. You know, let's go on a nice ride. And that's what we want to do, is we want to regain the access. If we don't do it, if we don't fight for it, it's never going to happen. And I would like the ASA, that I don't know how that goes with your organization and any of the other organizations. Basically, you know, if I file a complaint, you know, okay, you know, this guy has a bar out there, I got 5,000 signatures on a petition, that means something. But if I have your organizations and you know, American Sand Association, Corva, all these different organizations say we need our access back. We don't want people driving onto the highway. We don't want people trespassing on the train tracks and jumping them. I want your help is what I'm asking for, to be able to sign on and say, yes, we want the access to, it's something that means something. Those were our crossings. Those were our access to public land. And they're on the maps. The trails dead end into the train tracks. They wouldn't dead end into the train tracks if the crossings weren't there. If you line them up on public maps that I have, where all the crossings were, Reuben, Cactus, and Clyde. So.
Go ahead,
I
Nicole.
was just going to say, as a point of clarification, we did actually have Vargas come out, and we did specifically talk to him about the issue with the railroad crossing. And so we have a picture of him when we were talking about it. So we have engaged him, and the ASA as a whole has been very supportive of the efforts that you're trying to do, and we've appeared on behalf of ourselves at the County Board of Supervisors meeting and things like that. And so as far as moving forward, what we can do is take what you're saying and take it to our next board meeting and talk about what we can do further. And so we can discuss it amongst the board members and figure out what we want to do. But as you know, you've been supportive of us and we've been supportive of you. And it isn't a Boardmanville issue, it's an issue about access. And so we want the same thing. We want a safe way to get from one side to the other. And right now, there isn't one. And that's an issue.
And you guys having Nicole on your board, she's a huge help.
I'm not on the board. I'm an employee. But I'm there, so I know how it is.
You guys have, she's a great girl. And to have her go to the Sea of Brawley meeting, the County Board of Supervisor meeting, she comes with a lot of credibility, and that's a big help for my fight. And I kind of taken this on as a personal vendetta, or I don't know what you want.
Mission.
Mission. There you
go. Oh, really, Lance?
Yeah.
We didn't know that.
You know how it goes. So, you know, but I want to figure this out. And, you know, after talking to the families of the Gonzalez and the Bestwicks, and understanding exactly what happened that day and why it happened, the kids did something wrong that was admitted. Because there were some mitigating factors that people really don't understand why and what happened that day. Kids, there was no signs that said 2 tracks. Kids didn't know. The one train stopped. It was sitting there for 3 to 5 minutes. And they sat there and they didn't realize there was another set of tracks when they went around the guard. They thought the train just broke. You know, it's sad, and they want to fix the problem. They've gone and they've met with Michael Turco's done an article on it a couple times. They actually met with them a while back. We just want to fix the problem. That's all we want to do. In the PUC, they wrote a letter back saying, basically, kind of egging us to please file a complaint. That's what they want us to do.
So I think for the next board meeting, since we've done this with you in the past, if you want to send us what you have in mind for the complaint, we'll take a look at it and go from there.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've been asked online to turn up the volume.
Okay, I can do that. That's our only question from online?
So far.
By the way, you've noticed I've been playing with the equipment. That's what I do for a living in addition to serving on the board. So that's why I'm doing double duty tonight. Any additional questions? All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming out. We appreciate your attendance and your attention. And we'd like to invite you to stick around a little bit longer if you want to talk with us one-on-one if you feel more comfortable that way. We'll be here for a little bit.
We have an East Access topic golf clap from the gallery. Smiley face. I'm not sure what that means.
I think somebody was enjoying the fact that we were talking about accessing the eastern route to travel.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I usually can interpret online pretty well.
Good. And we touched a little bit about...
when will Gecko Road open again?
That opens up at the end of September, as I recall, is the BLM schedule. As for those of you who don't know, Gecko Road in the North Dunes is currently being repaved. Long overdue improvement that needed to happen, and they closed it down at the end of April, as I recall, and it's scheduled to reopen in September, just before the dune season.
But now that we're starting to get questions, if you want me to, I can add some to Ed's last question and see if we can generate.
Is that on?
No, there you go.
We can see if we can generate some more questions now that people are starting to get in. About the website, it's not just the Dunes website. It's essentially all of the environmental agencies and probably a lot of other federal agencies that there was an election in November and there's a tremendous change in philosophy going on in Washington. And, you know, you read these stories every day in the newspaper about how, oh, it's been another day and another month and they can't get secretaries through the confirmation process. And then it's all the other confirmation of the top Washington officials that are slowed down. And that sounds like, okay, well, that's back in Washington, that's a big stuff. But it does affect us here because pretty quickly the administration says, you know, there's still stuff going on that they can't control. They don't know what's happening, but they do hear that there's tweets going out and all of this stuff from these federal agencies and who knows what on their websites. And the commander-in-chief decided that until the Congress lets him put his own people in to decide what is going to go out to the public on some of this stuff, all of a sudden we don't have the advisory committee that we had, and we don't have some website information availability and so on. It's not punitive towards us or our community or anything. It's just that until their own people are in, and there's been this extraordinary system going on where they won't confirm anybody and so on, so the reverse is until they're in charge of what information is going out from the government, from this government, which is a new government from what we had last government, then there's nothing going to go out. And so that's, you know, the stuff on the evening news trickles all the way down to what we're interested in, when we get on the computer and try to find out what's going on in Glamis. It's a long way from Washington, but that's really why you can't get what you want when you get on that website. So I just thought I'd kind of fill in, the rest of the story, as they used to say on the news.
We got another question. Good. Another question, are there any changes to the Dune Pass pricing for the next season?
No. However, as to follow on with what Bob just said, Department of Interior is getting its budget slashed significantly. Whether or not that comes to pass when Congress actually takes a pass at it, we don't know. So there is a possibility, there could be changes suggested for next year, and that's one of the things we'll be working with BLM to make sure that that doesn't go through the roof and make OHV access inaccessible for a good portion of our population.
As far as for this coming season?
For this coming season, upcoming, that's going to start in October when the next passes start, no changes at this point.
Do we have any other questions?
There is about a 12-second delay in Facebook Live, so it might take a few. Yes, Ed?
Have you guys, is that for the website?
Yeah.
All right, because I'm pretty sure I can get across this room, okay?
Yep.
Have you guys talked about hiring a federal lobbyist to work on Patton Valley access?
It wasn't something that's come up at this point. Like Carrie mentioned earlier, that I think we'll have a good success with administrative relief. If for some reason that doesn't pan out, that would be something we would absolutely look at.
We did raise that with our legal consultant, and the consensus.
No.
That's right.
Sorry.
I forget that we're not just speaking to one.
Yeah, we have
I want to capture this so we have it.
Yeah, we actually addressed that question specifically in our last conference with our legal consultant, Dave Hubbard, because I was kind of thinking too, with the change in the climate in Washington, it might be an appropriate time to flex a little lobbyist muscle back there. We had that discussion. His experiences start on the administrative angle first, especially when we have the optimism and the relationships in place that we think we can leverage for good things to happen. And frankly, we think there's a possibility of a good administrative resolution that pretty much all sides would be okay with. And so that's plan A, but certainly the lobbyist angle is something that has been expressly discussed, and we've got it out there as a potential plan B.
Could you describe what an administrative solution is?
Administrative solution is a petition to amend the BLM's administrative closure boundaries. As we touched on earlier, the BLM's decision to make the closures, the boundaries that we see out there right now, they just happen to align almost perfectly with the boundaries that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service established for critical habitat. And that kind of is the path of least resistance when you're talking about, hey, what's the safest approach for the BLM to do administratively? Well, we'll just follow the critical habitat boundaries established by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And so the BLM decision is an administrative decision. And in the administrative code, it shows that they have, and in the CFRs, the Code of the Federal Register shows that they have some discretion. So you petition to modify the administrative decision. It puts a lot of procedures in place, including public comment, etc. But we believe that through that process, a kind of a compromise could be sold that everybody would be okay with. And that some of the environmental concerns would look at and say, hey, that's pretty rational. Because if you think about it, the Patton Valley Access Corridor is a pretty small area. And it's one that we've been using forever. And notwithstanding all of our use, there's still a lot of the Pearson's milk vetch right there. In fact, a lot of times we think, hey, we might be helping essentially these plants to germinate by rustling the sand around there. And so we really think that there's some good angles, and this is one of the things also that Art Phillips is going to look at. So we're pushing the administrative angle, and again, optimism is what optimism is until you get to the wrong bureaucrat, and the bureaucrat slams the door in your face. Then we might have to look more the lobbyist angle, and we certainly think we can avoid litigation.
It's a lot less expensive to do this administratively than litigation, so that's definitely the approach we want to take.
Got another question?
Fire, let's see, which one? On the East Valley Access Plan, is an under overpass at Wash 10 part of the desired plan or just a crossing near 78? Good question. One of the issues with the Wash 10 underpass, and a couple of the guys here can correct me if I misremember this, the underpass itself, because it is actually the property of Union Pacific Railroad, they have more discretion over what they do. And I see Lance telling me no. But one of the things that they did approach us with, and one of the issues that they said they had, was that it had to be upgraded and improved to allow for vehicle traffic, and there basically become essentially a bridge similar to what you would see on a highway. So that's been the pushback on Wash 10, is that because of the improvements that need to happen, it's prohibitively expensive to continue doing what we've done in the past. And Lance, if you'd like to add on to that, I'd appreciate it.
You know, I did a research on the property out there, and Union Pacific doesn't own that property. It's actually owned by Bureau of Land Management, and they actually have they just have an easement through the area. And Union Pacific Railroad in 2010 in the meeting notes said that they would reopen Wash 10 if another avenue was, you know, being built or something of that sort. So Union Pacific can reopen it without anything being done to it. I met with Kevin Schumacher from the PUC out there, and Kevin said this is federal land on either side. If the railroad wants to reopen this, they can reopen it. That is their 100% sole right. I showed Wes Lujan a video from Utah where there's a same style culvert crossing there underneath the road, and showed them with the UTVs going underneath it there. And I said, this can be done. And David Pickett said, no, it can't be done. It has to be approved by the PUC. And then I reminded them of the 2010 meeting. I said, no, you can reopen this. You're choosing not to. And so that was, but they don't own that property.
Okay.
And I don't think Union Pacific has any record of what they can and can't do out there. And I think that they're worried about, that's why the three of them were out there on June 5th taking a look, trying to figure out what are we going to do, because they know that I'm not going to stop.
Mm-hmm. So that may be something that eventually may be part of a reopening. We don't know at this point.
Yeah, I would like to see all four of the crossings reopened and a crossing at Highway 78, because people tend to focus, and when they get down towards the Atlantic Beach store, they're at the 78 and they don't want to drive 1.8 miles back to Wash 10 if that's where a crossing would be. I think we need something at Highway 78 also. That needs to be an added crossing. It should have been in place in 2007 when those kids were killed there, because that's where people still will cross today, even if we have the other crossings, just because they don't want to drive a mile and a half down the way to go to Wash 10. It's something that should be done for public safety.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just clarify? Lance keeps saying PUC, that's the Public Utilities Commission, and I just want to clarify, that's where we're at. The Public Utilities Commission is who has to make the decision. That's the authority, that's who we're looking to now say, okay, how are you guys going to provide us access? It's no longer now the Pacific Railroad, it's no longer up to the BLM, now it's the Public Utilities Commission that we have to go after and get them to provide us access.
Okay. Hope that answered your question.
They have a follow-up question.
Follow-up question. So besides Union Pacific dragging their feet, it's basically a cost issue, cost to meet code for railroad crossings. That was the way that Union Pacific tried to stall that particular one, but given what we've heard so far, that sounds like that's not going to be, cost isn't necessarily an issue. It's a matter of finding the political capital, as it were, to get that done. Go ahead, Lance.
There's a fund called the Federal Land Access Program, FLAP, and I was given the direction from Corey Benz from Caltrans, and they're applying for FLAP grant money for a crossing at Highway 78. The Caltrans has to have connecting property to be able to take responsibility of a crossing, and that's where we get to the other crossings, the Cactus, Clyde, Ruthven, and Wash 10 crossings. Those we could ask for FLAP money from, but the railroad keeps coming back and saying a public agency has to take responsibility and control of a crossing. That is their policy. It is not the law, and that is a policy that they've adopted. But they have deviated from their policy in quite a few different areas. They won't admit to it, but I have proof of in Arizona, the Honeywell plant. They deviated from that and gave them, let them keep a crossing there. They can do it. A public agency doesn't have to take responsibility and control. The issue we have is BLM has no avenue to take responsibility and control. County of Imperial does not have any roads that connect to Cactus, Clyde, Ruthven, or Wash 10. So we're kind of sitting there in between. I asked if people are familiar with Mammoth Wash. It's 18 miles northwest of Highway 78. OHV is right underneath Mammoth Wash every day, and there's no public agency that takes responsibility and control of Mammoth Wash. There's another one in Arizona that's near the Fortuna exit. Those are just a couple. There's thousands of places where OHV is right underneath in these trestles that were in place for years and years and years. I've offered to help with getting some flat money. I would, said I'd donate some time, some money to get some flat money to replace some of Union Pacific's aging trestles. Some of those trestles have been in there since 1934. And I said, you guys had a train collapse in 08 at Wash 8 because a trestle collapsed. Why don't we work on getting some flat money, putting in bigger crossings where the Cactus, Clyde, and Ruthven were at, so they were grade separated, so it would help keep everybody safe away from your tracks and not jumping your tracks. And without a public entity pushing senators, assemblymen, congressmen, they're not going to do anything. They only respond to political pushing.
Okay. Thanks, Lance.
And we're here.
Okay. All right. So it looks like we answered Mike's question and appreciate the assistance on that. So if we don't have any further questions, I'd like to go ahead and close out. We'll shut down the broadcast again. If you want to talk to any of us one-on-one, we'll be here for a little bit. But again, thank you for your attendance. For those of you who watched us online, thank you for your attendance there. Please feel free to share the video with your friends afterwards. And if there's any additional questions, feel free to reach out to us on our American Santa Association Facebook page. And we'll try to get everything answered. We want to be an open and transparent board as much as possible. There's some things we have to keep close to the vest to ensure the operation of the board and that the ASA remains viable. But that's one of my main goals coming in as a president, is I want everybody to know that we're here, we're spending your money wisely, and we're trying to get the job done and make sure that the dunes and public lands everywhere stay open and we have the opportunity for OHV recreation. So again, thank you for your attendance, everybody.